He thought it was entertainment to drag the new waitress by her hair and knee her face in front of a packed Friday night crowd at Inferno. Phones captured every second. Laughter echoed off the blood-red neon walls. For 45 brutal seconds, Derek Lawson felt like a god among men. The bar manager with muscles built for intimidation and an ego that had never been checked. But here is the thing about Inferno that Derek never understood despite 4 years of working there. Sometimes the polished floor you are standing on belongs to someone who collects debts in blood and never forgets a face. When she lifted her head with blood dripping from her split lip and broken nose, the room expected tears. They expected begging. They expected the broken whimper of a woman who had already been shattered by life. A 27-year-old Latina with tired blue-gray eyes, a body too thin from skipping meals, and 3 jobs just to keep her dying mother alive and her teenage sister safe. Serena Cole had every reason to cry. She had survived a husband who used her as a punching bag for 3 years. She had buried her father when she was 8. She was drowning in $80,000 of medical debt. But when she looked up at Derek with blood staining her teeth, she did not cry. She did not beg. She simply stared at him with the hollow calm of someone who had already seen hell and was no longer afraid of the devil. And the room went cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and whispers that someone just signed their own death warrant. What Derek did not know was who owned every brick of the building where he had just made her bleed. What Derek did not know was that Dante Moretti, the most feared Mafia boss on the East Coast, a man with a fallen angel tattooed on one arm and hellfire on the other, a man with a scar running from his temple to his cheek from the night he watched his mother die, had just finished a meeting in the VIP room. And he was already walking through the door. His black eyes locked on the blood pooling beneath her knees. His jaw tightened, and somewhere in the shadows of his scarred soul, something cracked open for the first time in 26 years. If you are hooked and want to see what happens next, smash that like button and share this story with someone who loves drama. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a single twist. Now back to the story, because what Dante did next would make Derek wish he had never been born. 3 hours before her blood would fall onto the polished wooden floor of Inferno, Serena Cole stood in a cramped hospital room watching her mother breathe through a tube, the woman lying there thin as a brittle leaf about to fall, her skin ashen beneath the cold fluorescent lights. Terminal cancer, the doctor had said. 3 months left without money for treatment. 3 months, 90 days, 2,160 hours to watch the woman who gave birth to her slowly disappear. Serena held her mother's hand, all bone and icy cold, and she did not cry. She had forgotten how to cry a long time ago. Tears could not pay $80,000 in hospital debt. Tears could not buy medicine. Tears could not keep her mother alive for even one more day. She bent down and kissed her mother's forehead, whispering that everything would be all right, even though she knew it was the biggest lie of her life. Then she left the hospital and stepped into the gray Manhattan afternoon with her shoulders bent under the weight of the entire world. The studio apartment Serena rented sat on the 5th floor of a worn-down building on the Lower East Side where the elevator had been broken since last month and the stairwell smelled of urine. She climbed the chipped steps one by one and pushed open the door to the cramped room where her younger sister was doing homework at a crooked wooden table. Lily Cole, 17 years old, brown hair tied up high, eyes exactly like Serena's but still holding a glimmer of light Serena had lost long ago. Lily looked up and smiled when she saw her sister, but the smile faded when she saw Serena's face. "How is Mom?" Serena did not answer. She went straight into the tiny bathroom and shut the door. She looked at herself in the mirror, gray blue eyes sunken from lack of sleep, hollow cheeks from skipping meals to save money for Lily and their mother, dull brown hair tied back in a hurry. 27 years old, yet looking closer to 37. She changed clothes, putting on the only white shirt she owned that was still intact, and a pair of black pants faded with age. Tonight was her first shift at Inferno, $25 an hour, plus tips. Nowhere else paid that much for someone without a degree like her. When Serena came out, she sat beside Lily and took her hand. "I'm working the night shift. Stay home. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone. If anything happens, call me." Lily nodded, but worry flickered in her eyes. Did he text again? Serena said nothing. He, Kevin Drake, her ex-husband, the man who had used her as a punching bag for 3 years, who had shoved her into shattered glass, leaving a scar on her wrist, who had nearly killed her the night she dared to file for divorce. She had escaped 6 months ago, but Kevin would not let go. Just then her phone vibrated. A message. An unknown number, but she knew exactly who it was. "You think you can hide? I know where you are. I know what school your sister goes to. You belong to me. Forever." Serena deleted the message, shoved the phone into her pocket, and held Lily tightly. She did not tell her sister about the message. She told no one. She was used to carrying everything alone. At 8 in the evening, Serena stood before the doors of Inferno, red neon lights like blood washing over her face. Music and laughter spilling out from inside. She took a deep breath, smoothed her apron, and stepped in. She did not know that within a few hours her blood would drip onto this floor. She did not know that tonight would change her life forever. She only knew she needed money, and she was willing to endure anything to get it. Dante Moretti stopped in the middle of the room and no one dared to breathe. The music was still playing, but it felt as though all sound had been sucked out of the space, leaving only a silence thick and congealed, like drying blood. The eyes that had been staring at Serena now turned toward the man who had just stepped out of the VIP door. They recognized him. All of them did. Dante Moretti needed no introduction. His name was whispered in dark alleyways, carved into the gravestones of those who dared to oppose him. Written in blood on the walls of the Lower East Side. A Mafia boss. The owner of Inferno. The owner of this entire neighborhood, and now he was standing there, eyes black as bottomless pits, looking down at the pool of blood spreading beneath the knees of the new waitress. He did not look at Derek. Not yet. He walked toward Serena, each heavy step landing like a war drum. The crowd instinctively parted to form a path as if they feared being burned alive by touching him. Dante stopped in front of Serena and bent down to meet her eyes. For the first time that night, someone looked at her without pity or contempt. He looked at her the way a man reads a familiar story, a story he himself had lived through 26 years earlier. "Can you stand?" His voice was low, not loud, yet the entire room heard it. Serena nodded and pushed herself up on her own, refusing the hand he offered. Dante showed no irritation. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, an expression those who knew him would recognize as respect. "Marco," Dante called without turning around, and a tall man appeared instantly behind him, eyes sharp as blades, hand resting on the belt where a gun was hidden beneath his suit. "Take her to my room. Call a doctor. First aid kit in the bottom drawer." Marco nodded and gently guided Serena toward the VIP door. She hesitated for a second and looked back at Dante, but he had already turned away, his gaze now falling on Derek Lawson as if he were staring at a revolting insect. Derek stood frozen, the arrogant smile long gone, replaced by a creeping pallor. He was beginning to understand. In 4 years of working for Dante Moretti, he had never seen his boss look at anyone that way. "Everyone out," Dante said, his voice no louder than a whisper, yet sharp as a blade. No one moved. They stood there with phones still in hand, recording, live streaming, waiting for the next act. Dante turned back, his eyes sweeping the room like the scythe of death itself. "I said everyone out." 4 words, each one falling like a hammer blow. And this time they listened. Chairs toppled, glasses shattered, footsteps trampled over one another. Within 90 seconds, the packed bar became a graveyard, customers out, staff following, no one daring to look back, leaving only Dante, Derek, and 2 men in black suits blocking the doors. "Lock it," Dante ordered. The click of the lock sounded like a gun being cocked. Derek took a step back until his spine hit the bar, sweat beaded on his forehead. "Dante, listen, let me explain," he began, his voice shaking. "That girl spilled a drink on a VIP guest, Tony Russo. I was just..." Dante raised a hand, a small gesture. Derek fell silent as if someone had crushed his throat. The room sank into stillness, broken only by the jazz music still playing through the speakers, a mournful tune like a funeral dirge. Dante removed his suit jacket, folded it neatly, set it on the bar, then began to roll up his sleeves, slowly, revealing tattoo after tattoo, fallen angels, hellfire, sinners and saints. Derek stared at the ink and he knew that in a few minutes he would wish he had never been born. Dante walked toward Derek, each slow step like a panther advancing on prey already trapped in a corner. Derek retreating until his back struck the bar with nowhere left to run, the 2 men who had guarded the door now gone at Dante's command, leaving only the 2 of them in the vast room, a kingpin and a man who had just made a fatal mistake. Dante, stopping 3 steps away, close enough for Derek to see every vein along the tattooed arms, close enough to smell the expensive cologne mixed with something far more dangerous. "How long have you worked for me, Derek?" The sudden question made Derek flinch. 4 years, he answered hoarsely. 4 years, Dante nodded slowly. 4 years and you learned nothing. He turned away and walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, slid one toward Derek. "Drink." Derek stared at the glass as if it might explode. "I cannot," I said, "drink." Derek lifted the glass with shaking hands and drained it in one gulp. The liquor burned his throat but could not warm the cold spreading through his body. Dante took a small sip. his black eyes never leaving Derek. "My father opened this bar in the year 1977, he began, his voice low, like distant thunder. Back then this area was a war zone. Drugs on every corner, corpses in every alley. The police did not come here unless they were dirty or desperate. My father built Inferno on one rule only: respect. Not the kind bought with money, not the kind forced with guns. Real respect. You could be a criminal, a cop, a saint, or a sinner. It did not matter. You respected everyone under this roof or you never came back." Derek swallowed. Dante set his glass on the bar, the sound of glass on wood cutting through the silence like a death knell. "When I was 8 years old, I watched a man slap my mother right at this bar," Dante continued, his voice unchanged though his eyes darkened. "She served him the wrong beer. A small mistake, and he struck her in front of everyone." The blood drained from Derek's face. "My father did not shout or argue. He simply led that man into the back room, just like where we are standing now. 20 minutes later, my father came out alone. That man was never seen again." Dante stepped closer, now only one step away. "That night my father told me something I never forgot. He said, 'Dante, you can rule by fear, but that makes you a tyrant. You can rule by money, but that makes you a slave. Rule by respect, and you build something that lasts.'" Dante tilted his head, looking at Derek as if he were a revolting insect. "And tonight I watched you drive your knee into the face of an innocent girl. I watched you drag her by the hair, humiliate her in front of a crowd while they filmed and laughed. I did not just see an abusive manager. I saw everything my father taught me being spat on." Dante grabbed Derek by the collar and yanked him close. "She reminded me of my mother. Do you understand? You just struck a woman the same way my mother was treated before she was shot dead in front of me." Derek opened his mouth, but Dante's fist arrived first. The first blow to the stomach. Derek doubled over as the air was forced from his lungs. The second punch to the jaw. He hit the floor, blood flooding his mouth. "This is for your arrogance," Dante said calmly as if reciting a recipe. A kick to the ribs. "This is for your stupidity." Another punch to the face. "And this is for dragging my name through the dirt." Derek lay curled on the floor, blood pouring from his nose and mouth, tears mixing with mucus. "Please, sir, please, I will never." Dante stood over him without a drop of sweat, not a strand of hair out of place. "You have 24 hours to disappear from New York," Dante said, his voice cold as ice. "If I see your face in this city again, if I hear your name anywhere within 500 miles, you will wish you had died tonight." He bent down, grabbed Derek's hair and forced his head up. "Look at me." Derek opened swollen eyes and stared into Dante's unforgiving, obsidian stare. "Do you understand?" "Yes," Derek whispered. "I understand." Dante released him and let his head fall back to the floor, took a handkerchief from his pocket, wiped his hands clean, then walked toward the VIP door where Serena was waiting. "Take the trash out of my bar," he ordered the two men who had just appeared at the door, and the room fell into silence once again. Dante's private room lay behind a heavy oak door at the end of the VIP corridor, and Marco led Serena past walls hung with expensive paintings and crystal chandeliers, a world entirely different from the bar floor where her blood had just fallen. She walked on trembling legs, yet refused anyone's support. She was used to standing up alone. She was used to bleeding alone. The room was spacious with a black leather sofa, a mahogany desk, and a large oil painting on the wall of a woman with sorrowful eyes. Serena did not know who the woman was, but she recognized the pain in those eyes. She saw that same pain every day in the mirror. Marco pointed to the sofa and told her to sit down. The doctor would arrive shortly. Then he disappeared through the door, leaving Serena alone in the unfamiliar room of the most feared Mafia boss on the east coast of America. Serena sat down with her hands on her thighs and her back straight. She did not cry. She did not tremble. She sat there like a statue, long accustomed to being shattered and then piecing itself back together. The blood from her nose had stopped, but her lips were still swollen, and her cheeks still throbbed. Where Derek's knee had struck, she had endured far worse than this. Kevin had once beaten her until she could not open her eyes for 3 days. Kevin had kicked her while she was pregnant, causing her to lose the child at 5 weeks. Kevin had slammed her head against the wall and whispered that if she ever tried to leave, he would kill both her and Lily. Compared to those nights, tonight was nothing more than a small scratch. She had survived hell. A knee to the face meant nothing. The door opened, and a middle-aged man with graying hair and a leather case stepped inside. He did not introduce himself, simply set the case on the desk and began taking out his instruments. Dante's private doctor, Serena guessed. The kind of doctor who asked no questions and never called the police. He stood before her and gently lifted her chin to examine her. "The nose is not broken," he said in a professional, emotionless voice, "but the lip needs 2 stitches. Can you tolerate the pain?" Or do you want anesthetic?" "No need," Serena replied, her voice flat as an unbroken lake. The doctor looked at her for a moment, something passing through his eyes, perhaps surprise, perhaps respect. Then he began his work. The needle pierced her skin, and Serena did not flinch. The thread pulled through flesh, and she did not shudder. She sat there with her gaze fixed on the painting of the woman on the wall and thought of her mother, lying in the hospital with tubes running through her body, counting down the final days of her life. She thought of Lily sitting alone in their shabby apartment, anxiously waiting for her to return. She thought of $80,000 in hospital debt, of 3 jobs that still could not cover the rent, of Kevin lurking somewhere out there. She thought of everything weighing on her shoulders, and wondered if there would ever be a day she could rest. Perhaps not. Perhaps she would die still bent beneath the burden, but at least she would die having fought until her final breath. The doctor finished, taped her lip, and handed her an ice pack. "Apply it for 20 minutes, rest for 20 minutes, take painkillers if needed," he said, placing the bottle on the desk. Serena nodded, but she knew she would not take the medicine. Medicine cost money, and she would need that money for something else. The doctor left and the door closed, leaving Serena alone again. She looked around the luxurious room at objects worth more than a year of her wages, and wondered why the man who owned all of this would care about an unknown waitress. She had no answer. She only knew she needed this job, and if she had to face the devil to keep it, she would. She had faced demons her entire life. One more would make no difference at all. The door opened and Dante Moretti stepped inside, his suit jacket back on and his sleeves pulled down to hide the tattoos. Yet Serena still noticed the faint smear of blood across his knuckles. Derek's blood, and she did not know what she was supposed to feel about that. Fear, gratitude, or merely the familiar emptiness she had carried for years. Dante closed the door behind him, walked to the chair across from her, and sat down, saying nothing at first, only studying her with eyes black and deep, as if he were trying to read every page of her life. Serena met his gaze without lowering her eyes or looking away. She had learned long ago that predators enjoyed fear, and she would not give him that satisfaction. "You do not cry," Dante said at last. Not a question but an observation. Serena shrugged slightly, the movement sending a stab of pain through her shoulder, though she did not show it on her face. "Tears do not pay the rent." Dante tilted his head a fraction, as if her answer surprised him. He was used to women who cried, begged, or tried to seduce him for protection. This girl did none of those things. She simply sat there with tired gray, blue eyes and a spine held straight, as if she were accustomed to facing the world alone. "Derek has been dealt with," Dante continued. "He will never appear in New York again." Serena nodded but did not say thank you. She did not owe him gratitude. She had not asked for his help, and she had learned that powerful men never did anything without expecting something in return. "What do you want?" she asked bluntly. Dante raised an eyebrow. "What do you think I want?" "I do not know. But I know no one does anything for free. You are a Mafia boss. You do not save an anonymous waitress out of kindness." Something flickered in Dante's eyes, perhaps irritation at being challenged, perhaps respect for her daring to challenge him. "You know who I am," she replied. "All of Manhattan knows who you are. I do not live under a rock. And you still want to work here, after what just happened, after knowing who I am." Serena looked him straight in the eyes. "You pay $25 an hour plus tips. Nowhere in Manhattan pays that much to someone without a degree. My mother is in the hospital with terminal cancer. My sister is 17 and needs money for school. I owe $80,000 in hospital bills. I do not have the luxury of being afraid of a Mafia boss." The room fell silent. Dante regarded her as if she were a creature he had never encountered before. Women usually tried to hide their desperation, pretending to be strong or weak depending on what served them best. This girl did neither. She simply told the truth, raw and unapologetic. "Do you have a husband?" Dante asked, his voice dropping suddenly. Serena stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. "I did. Divorced 6 months ago. He hit you." Not a question. Serena did not answer, but her silence was answer enough. Dante's gaze dropped to her hand where a faint scar ran along her wrist and his jaw tightened. He had seen that scar when she stood up from the bar floor and known instantly it was not self-inflicted. It was the mark of someone shoved into shattered glass. "I do not need your pity," Serena said sharply. "I have heard enough pity in my life. It cannot be turned into money to buy medicine for my mother. I only need this job. If you let me keep working after tonight, I will work. If not, I will find something else. It is that simple." Dante leaned back and laced his fingers across his chest, studying her in a silence long enough that Serena thought he would send her away. Then he spoke. "I will pay you double $50 an hour, 4 nights a week instead of 6. Serena blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. In exchange for what? Nothing, Dante replied. Consider it an apology for my employee treating you that way under my roof. Serena looked at him for a long moment, searching for the trap hidden inside the offer. She did not find one, or perhaps she simply could not afford to find it. I do not trust you, she said honestly, but I will accept because I have no other choice. Dante nodded as if her blunt honesty was something he valued more than any flattery. You start Monday next week. He stood, walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to look at her. You are stronger than you think, Serena Cole. And then he disappeared through the door, leaving Serena alone with a question that had no answer. How he knew her full name. Marco drove Serena home on Dante's orders, and she sat in the back seat of the sleek black Mercedes, staring out the window without truly seeing anything. Streetlights sliding past like blurred streaks of light, blending with the dull ringing in her ears. The pain on her face softened by the ice pack, but the ache in her chest remained. She thought about Dante's offer. $50 an hour, double the original wage. She thought about how he knew her full name without her ever telling him. She thought about those deep black eyes that looked at her as if he were reading every scar carved into her soul. The car stopped in front of her old, worn building, and Marco opened the door. She stepped out without saying thank you. Not out of rudeness, but because she was too exhausted to speak at all. She only wanted to go home. She only wanted to hold Lily and sleep, a long, dreamless sleep. She climbed 5 flights of stairs on legs that felt like lead, every step an effort, every breath a battle. And when she reached the apartment door, it flew open before she could fit the key into the lock. Lily stood there with red-rimmed eyes, hair loose and tangled as if she had run her hands through it 100 times in worry. Then Lily saw her sister's face, the swollen lip stitched twice, the bruised cheek, the left eye slightly puffed. Sister? Lily's voice broke. What happened to you? Who did this to you? Serena stepped inside, closed the door, and locked it 3 times out of habit. It's nothing. I fell. Lily did not believe her. Of course she did not. She had seen Serena lie too many times. Had seen her hide Kevin's bruises too many times. Don't lie to me. I'm not a child. Serena looked at her 17-year-old sister who had been forced to grow up too fast by circumstance, and she no longer had the strength to hold the wall up. Someone at work, but it's been handled. I won't see him again. Lily wrapped her arms around her, holding tight as if afraid Serena would vanish if she let go. Serena hugged her back, resting her chin on the top of Lily's head, feeling her warmth like a small flame in a freezing winter night. They lay together on the narrow single bed as they had on countless nights before. Nights when Kevin had drunkenly raged outside the door. Nights when Serena had dragged Lily to a neighbor's apartment to hide. Serena stared at the peeling ceiling as memories crashed over her like a tide. She remembered the first night Kevin hit her. They had been married 3 months. She had cooked dinner 15 minutes late because of traffic after work. Kevin slapped her to the kitchen floor and told her it was her fault for not knowing how to manage her time. She had believed him. She had apologized. She had thought if she did better, he would stop hitting her. But she was wrong. She was always wrong. No matter what she did, he found a reason. The food too salty. The house not clean enough. She smiled at another man in the grocery store. She wore a skirt that was too short. She breathed too loudly while he watched television. She remembered the night he shoved her into the glass door. She was 5 weeks pregnant and had told him, hoping he would change. He did not. He said he did not want a child, said she had gotten pregnant to trap him. He pushed her, and she fell through the balcony glass door, shards slicing deep into her wrist, blood pooling across the floor. She lost the baby that same night, spent 3 days in the hospital, and told the doctors she had fallen. No one believed her, but no one asked more questions. No one cared. She remembered the day she finally dared to file for divorce. Kevin found out and came for her. He strangled her in the kitchen, lifting her off the ground, whispering that if she left him, he would kill Lily in front of her before killing her. She almost died that night, but neighbors heard the noise and called the police. Kevin was arrested. She got a restraining order. Finalized the divorce while he was in jail for 30 days, for assault, but 30 days was not long enough. He got out and began stalking her. Messages, calls, his shadow outside her window. He would not let go. Lily slept beside her now, breathing evenly and warmly. Serena looked at her, at the innocent face in sleep, and promised herself she would do anything to protect her, even work for the devil, even walk into hell every night. She would not let Lily suffer what she had suffered. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she slept without nightmares of Kevin, Instead, she dreamed of deep black eyes looking at her as if she were not worthless at all. At the same moment, Serena drifted into sleep in her shabby Lower East Side apartment. Dante Moretti sat alone in the dark office on the upper floor of Inferno. He did not turn on the lights. He did not need them. Darkness was an old companion he had known since he was 10 years old and watched his mother get shot to death. He sat in the leather chair behind his desk with a glass of whiskey in his hand, his eyes fixed on the photograph resting on the desk. Lucia Moretti, his mother, beautiful like an angel in that black and white image. Long black hair, gentle eyes, a smile that suggested she believed there was still goodness left in the world. She had been wrong. The world had killed her right in front of her son. Dante took a sip of whiskey and let the bitterness slide down his throat. He could not stop thinking about the girl from tonight, Serena Cole. The way she stood up from the floor with blood on her face and did not cry. The way she looked at him, not with fear or flattery, but with the cold defiance of someone who had nothing left to lose. The way she spoke about her life as if it were nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. Mother with cancer. Sister to support, $80,000 in debt. No luxury to be afraid. She reminded him of his mother. Not in appearance, but in the way she carried pain. Silently, alone, asking no one for pity. The office door opened, and Marco stepped in. He did not knock because it was unnecessary. After 12 years as Dante's right hand, Marco knew when his boss wanted to be alone, and when he needed him. Tonight was the latter. Derek has left the city, Marco reported. I had him followed. He boarded a bus to Philadelphia 20 minutes ago. Dante nodded without turning around. Good, he said quietly into the darkness. I need you to do one more thing. Look into the girl. Serena Cole. Everything. Family, work, history. I want to know it all. Marco paused for a second. He had worked for Dante long enough to know that when his boss took interest in someone, it was never random. Understood. It will be on your desk tomorrow morning. The next morning, as the first sunlight filtered through the curtains, a brown file folder lay on Dante's desk. He opened it and began to read. Serena Maria Cole, born on the 12th of March, 27 years old. Father deceased when she was 8, shot during a convenience store robbery. Mother Rosa Cole, 52 years old, currently undergoing treatment for terminal stage lung cancer at Mount Sinai Hospital. Estimated remaining lifespan between 2 and 4 months without intensive medical intervention. Sister Lily Cole, 17 years old, senior at Jefferson High School, strong academic performance, potential candidate for a college scholarship. Dante turned the page. Married to Kevin Drake at age 23. Divorced at age 26. Reason domestic violence. Police records show 7 reported incidents over 3 years. 4 hospitalizations. 1 restraining order. Kevin Drake served 30 days for aggravated assault. Currently released and showing signs of stalking the victim. Dante stopped on that page. 7 reports. 4 hospitalizations. He looked at the attached photograph taken from hospital records. Swollen, bruised eyes, split lip, fingerprint-shaped bruises on the neck, and a deep wound on the left wrist. The same wound he had seen the night before. Not self-inflicted. He turned another page. Current employment, 3 jobs. Night bar waitress at Inferno starting the previous day. Office cleaner at Morrison Company from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning. Online sales via Etsy during spare time, primarily handmade crafts and jewelry. Estimated total monthly income $2,800. Fixed expenses, rent $700, utilities $150, food $300 for 2 people, medication and medical supplies for mother approximately $500, bus fare $120, accumulated hospital debt $82,400, no assets, no savings, no health insurance. Dante closed the file and sat still for a long time. Eyes fixed on nothing. 7 reports and no one saved her. 4 hospital stays and she was sent back to the man who beat her. 3 jobs every day, to earn less than $3,000 a month, while owing more than $80,000. And she still stood back up. She still went to work. She still looked a mafia boss in the eye, and said she had no luxury to be afraid. Dante looked again at his mother's photograph on the desk. She had been the same, carrying everything alone, silent, unbreakable, until the day she could no longer carry it. He picked up the phone and called Marco. Get me everything on Kevin Drake, everything, and keep him under surveillance. I want to know where he is every second of every minute. Marco did not ask why. He never did. Understood. Boss. Monday arrived and Serena returned to Inferno as promised. The bruise on her cheek fading from purple to greenish yellow. The 2 stitches on her lip still there but beginning to heal. She concealed them with a thin layer of concealer bought from the $1 store on the corner. Not enough to hide everything, but enough that she did not look like she had stepped out of a horror film, and when she walked through the bar doors, every head turned toward her. Bartenders paused mid-motion. The other waitresses stopped talking. The entire room seemed to hold its breath for a single second before everyone hurried back to work, pretending they had not witnessed the girl the bar manager had beaten bloody on Friday night. Serena knew what they were thinking. They wondered why she had come back. They wondered who she was, that Dante Moretti had personally stepped in for her. They wondered if she was the boss's secret lover. She did not care what they thought. She only needed to work and get paid. The first week passed like an exhausting dream. Serena worked 4 nights as agreed, from 8 in the evening until 2 in the morning. She arrived early and left late. She did not complain when trays were heavy. She did not frown when drunk customers deliberately brushed against her. She simply stepped back, smiled professionally, and kept working. The other employees began to look at her differently, curiosity slowly turning into respect. She did not gossip during shifts. She did not blame others when mistakes happened. She carried her own load, and sometimes that of others, without asking for anything in return. A young waitress named Emma asked her how she endured it. Serena only shrugged and said she had worked far worse jobs for far less money. This was paradise, compared to what she had survived. What Serena did not know was that every night she worked, a pair of black eyes watched her from the corner of the VIP room. Dante never appeared openly. He sat in the darkness behind a one-way mirror, where he could see the entire bar floor without anyone seeing him. He watched the way she moved between tables, quick but unhurried. He watched how she treated customers, polite without submission. He watched how she handled difficult situations, calm and professional as if she had done this her entire life. Marco stood beside him, also watching, saying nothing. He knew what his boss was thinking. He had seen the way Dante looked at the girl, a look unlike the one he gave anyone else. Not desire, not pity, but curiosity and something deeper Marco could not name. On the 4th night, a drunk customer tried to hand Serena a thick wad of tip money. He was a middle-aged businessman with a flushed face from alcohol, his hand shaking as he pushed the cash into hers. "This is $500, he slurred. "For you, because you are beautiful, and because I want you to come with me tonight." Serena looked at the money, then at the man. $500, enough to cover a 1/6 of the rent, enough to buy her mother's medication for a month, enough for Lily to have new clothes for school. But she placed the money back on the table and gently slid it toward him. "Thank you, sir, but I cannot accept this. You are drunk. Tomorrow you will regret it." The man stared at her as if she had just refused $1 million, but Serena had already turned away, tray in hand, continuing her work as if what had just happened were nothing more than a small ripple in the ocean. From the VIP room, Dante saw everything. He saw her refuse $500 she desperately needed. He saw her choose dignity over survival. He saw something money could not buy. "She refused," Marco said, a hint of surprise in his voice. "I saw it," Dante replied, his eyes never leaving her moving figure in the crowd. "She is different from the others. Very different." He took a sip of whiskey and wondered when the last time was that he had met someone who made him want to know more. He could not remember, perhaps never, until now. On the 7th night since Serena began working at Inferno, a shadow appeared across the street from the bar. Kevin Drake leaned against an unlit street lamp, hood pulled over his black jacket, his eyes fixed on the door Serena would walk through when her shift ended. He had been following her for 2 weeks. He knew where she lived, where she worked, which hospital her mother was in, and which school Lily attended. He knew everything because she was his. She would always be his. Divorce papers were meaningless, scraps of paper. Restraining orders were a joke. Nothing and no one could separate her from him. What Kevin did not know was that he too was being watched. 2 men in a black car parked 50 meters away registered his presence the moment he stepped onto the corner. A call was made. "Marco, we have a problem. The ex-husband is outside the bar." 2 minutes later, Marco appeared at the back door of Inferno, checked the security cameras, saw Kevin standing there like a ghost in the night, and knew exactly what to do. He went straight to the VIP room where Dante sat behind the one-way glass. "Boss, Kevin Drake is outside." Dante did not answer immediately. He stood, walked to the monitor, and looked at the face of the man who had beaten Serena for 3 years, who had shoved her into shattered glass, who had made her lose her child. His jaw tightened, his gaze turned icy cold, sharp enough to cut through the glass separating them. "I will handle it," Dante said and left the room. No bodyguards. None were needed. He exited through the back, cut through the dark alley, and appeared behind Kevin without him realizing it. The Manhattan night was freezing, breath turning white in the air. Dante stood 3 steps behind Kevin, silent as darkness itself, until Kevin sensed a presence and turned around. He flinched at the sight of the tall man with a scar running from temple to cheekbone standing behind him. His survival instinct screamed, but his feet felt nailed to the pavement. "Who are you?" Kevin tried to steady his voice and failed. Dante did not answer. He only stepped closer, slow and deliberate, until his face was inches from Kevin's. "What are you doing here?" Dante asked, his voice low like distant thunder. "I am waiting for my wife," Kevin said, forcing bravado. "She is my wife." Dante tilted his head, black eyes regarding Kevin as if he were a disgusting worm. "She is not your wife. She divorced you 6 months ago, and you have a restraining order." "What do you know?" Kevin snapped. "This is none of your business. Serena is mine." Dante did not warn him. An arm shot out, grabbed Kevin by the collar, and slammed him into the brick wall behind him. His head cracked against it with a sickening sound. Kevin struggled, but Dante's strength was iron. He could not move. "Listen carefully, because I will only say this once," Dante whispered into Kevin's ear, his voice cold as ice. "Serena Cole is mine now. She works for me. She is under my protection. If I ever see you within 1 mile of her, her sister, or her mother, I will not call the police. I will deal with you myself, and when I am finished, there will not be enough of you left to bury. Do you understand?" Kevin looked into Dante's eyes and saw death, not an empty threat, not theatrics, but the cold certainty that this man would kill him without blinking. "I understand," Kevin whispered, his voice shaking. Dante released him and let him collapse onto the pavement like a sack of garbage, disappear. Kevin scrambled up and ran. He ran as if the devil himself were chasing him, and in a way, he was. Dante stood there for a moment watching Kevin vanish into the darkness. He knew men like Kevin never gave up easily. They always came back. But when he did, Dante would be ready. He returned to the bar through the back entrance and passed Marco waiting there. "Increase surveillance on him," Dante ordered. 24 hours a day. I want to know what time he goes to the bathroom." "Understood." Marco nodded. "Should I tell her?" Dante paused, thought for a second, then shook his head. "No, she has carried enough already. She does not need another burden." And that night, when Serena finished her shift and walked out of Inferno, she did not know that the ghost of her past had come looking for her. She also did not know that someone had driven that ghost away. She only knew the night was cold and she needed to get home to sleep a few hours before starting her morning shift. 1 month passed like a dream Serena scarcely dared to believe was real. She worked at Inferno 4 nights a week at $50 an hour, more than any job she had ever held. She still woke at 4 in the morning to clean offices, still squeezed in time to make handmade goods to sell online whenever she could. Yet the weight on her shoulders had lightened just a little. Only a little, but enough for her to breathe. Kevin no longer appeared. No threatening messages. No shadow lingering outside her window. She did not know why he had vanished so suddenly, and she did not dare ask. Afraid that thinking about it too much would summon it back like a curse, so she simply gave thanks for each quiet day and prayed it would last. On the Monday morning of the 2nd month, Marco called her into the management office. Serena stepped inside with her heart pounding, unsure what she had done wrong, but instead of a reprimand, Marco handed her a folder. "This is your new contract, assistant manager. Fixed salary of $7,000 a month plus performance bonuses. Full health insurance for you and 1 dependent." Serena stared at the folder, then at Marco, not certain she had heard correctly. "This comes from the boss." Marco said evenly, "You proved yourself over the past month. Sign it." Serena took the pen with trembling fingers. $7,000 a month. Health insurance. She could put Lily on the policy. She could stop worrying about the cost of medicine. She signed her name and felt as if she had just signed the first page of a new life. But what truly broke her happened 3 days later. She was at the hospital visiting her mother when a nurse asked her to step outside. "Miss Cole, someone would like to see you." Serena followed the nurse to the hospital's financial office where a middle-aged woman in a formal suit was waiting. "Miss Cole, I have good news for you," the woman smiled. "All of your mother's hospital bills have been paid, including the costs for intensive treatment over the next 6 months." Serena stood there like a statue, hearing every word while her mind refused to process them. "I am sorry. What did you say?" $82,400 in existing debt, and approximately $120,000 in future treatment costs, all covered by an anonymous benefactor. "Your mother will be moved to a private room with the best level of care. We will begin the new treatment plan next week." Serena did not remember how she left the office or where she walked afterward. She only knew that when she stopped, she was sitting on a bench in the hospital's small garden, and tears were streaming down her face. She cried. For the first time in so many years she cried, not from pain, not from despair, but because for the first time in her life someone had done something good for her, without asking for anything in return. She cried for her mother who would receive treatment. She cried for Lily who would not have to quit school to work. She cried for herself, for the girl who had carried everything alone for so many years, and who had finally been seen. She knew who it was. She had no proof, but she knew. Only one person had the money to do this. Only one person had the reason. Dante Moretti, the Mafia boss with the deep black eyes and the scar along his cheek, the man who had protected her on her first night at Inferno and had never asked for anything. She wanted to find him, to ask why, to thank him, but she knew he would never admit it. Men like him did not do good deeds to be praised. They did them for their own reasons she might never understand. In the dark office at Inferno, Dante received a message from Marco. She knows about the hospital bills. She is crying in the hospital garden. Dante read the message and set the phone down. He looked at the photograph of his mother on the desk, the woman who had died because no one protected her. He could not save his mother, but he could save someone else. He could do what he had been unable to do 26 years ago. When Marco asked whether he wanted her to know it was him, Dante shook his head. No, he said. This is not about me. This is about her. Marco did not ask more. He simply nodded and left, leaving Dante alone with the darkness and the memories of the woman in the photograph, the woman whose eyes were exactly like Serena's when she stood up from the bar floor with blood on her lips and did not cry. The video from that night did not disappear the way Dante had hoped, because although he had people remove most copies from social media, a few clips continued to circulate in the darker corners of the internet, shared within private groups and forums obsessed with exposing scandals among the elite. And one of those clips found its way to Michelle Torres, a 35-year-old investigative journalist at the New York Chronicle, known for uncovering organized crime and political corruption, who had been tracking the Moretti empire for 5 years, collecting fragments of information and building a file on Dante Moretti and his operations, but never having enough proof to publish, until she saw the footage of a waitress being assaulted at Inferno and Dante Moretti stepping in himself. Michelle spent 2 weeks researching, digging into Derek Lawson, the bar manager who vanished from New York immediately after that night, digging into Serena Cole, the woman in the video, and discovering a story far more tragic than she had expected: a mother with cancer, a younger sister, an abusive ex-husband, and now a job working for the most notorious mafia boss on the East Coast. And Michelle smelled a major story, imagining the headline, "Victim or Accomplice? The story of a woman in the arms of the devil," needing only Serena Cole to confirm a few details before publishing. On Friday night, Michelle walked into Inferno, disguised as a successful businesswoman unwinding after a stressful week, dressed in an elegant black dress with her hair swept up and her makeup understated, taking a seat at the corner of the bar and ordering a martini while scanning the room until she spotted Serena, who looked different from the video. The bruises gone, the stitches removed, moving between tables with a confidence Michelle had not expected. Not arrogance, but the quiet confidence of someone who had survived hell and knew there was nothing left to fear. And Michelle waited until Serena came to take her next order. "Excuse me, are you Serena Cole?" Michelle asked pleasantly, and Serena stopped, gray-blue eyes passing over Michelle's face with the wariness forged by years of living with violence. "How can I help you?" Michelle introduced herself as a journalist with the New York Chronicle and offered her hand, which Serena did not take, explaining she was writing about what had happened there weeks earlier and wanted Serena's side of the story. But Serena studied her for a long moment and said she had no story to tell, prompting Michelle to press that Serena had been attacked on camera, that Derek Lawson had beaten her in front of hundreds of people and then disappeared, with rumors he had been killed, asking if Serena could confirm that. And Serena set her tray down and faced Michelle with a steady gaze untouched by fear, saying she did not know where Derek Lawson was, did not care where he was, and had nothing to say to her or any other journalist. Michelle leaned forward, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret, telling Serena she understood her fear, that Dante Moretti was dangerous, but that if Serena told the truth, Michelle could protect her, bring her story into the light, and make sure he could not hurt her. And Serena laughed. Not with humor, but with the weary laugh of someone hearing a lie too large to believe, telling Michelle calmly that she knew nothing about her or her life, that she had lived with a man who beat her for 3 years and no one protected her, not the police, not the courts, not the press. And now Michelle had come claiming she could protect her from Dante Moretti. Michelle opened her mouth to respond, but Serena continued, saying that if Michelle wanted the truth, then here it was. That she feared many things in life. Her mother dying, her sister being harmed, her ex-husband returning to kill her. But Dante Moretti was not on that list. And with that, Serena lifted her tray and walked away, leaving Michelle with a warm martini and a story without a source, while from the VIP room above, Dante watched the entire exchange through the one-way glass, unable to hear their words but seeing the way Serena stood her ground, the way she did not step back, the way she walked away without looking behind her. And for the first time in many years, Dante Moretti smiled. That night, after Michelle Torres had left and the last customer walked out the door, Serena stayed behind to clean as usual, wiping down tables, stacking chairs, checking the liquor inventory, and noting what needed to be reordered for the following week, the work of an assistant manager being more than she had expected, but she did not complain. She liked being busy because it kept her mind from wandering into darker places, and by the time she finished everything, the clock read 3 a.m. She was reaching for her coat to leave when footsteps sounded behind her. She turned and saw Dante standing there holding 2 steaming cups of tea. "Do you drink tea?" he asked, his voice no longer as cold as before but softened by something unfamiliar. Serena looked at him, then at the cups, then back at him. This was the first time he had initiated a conversation since that first night in his office. Over the past month he had only watched from a distance, issued instructions through Marco, and kept his space as if she were a flame he feared would burn him if he came too close. "I do not drink alcohol," she replied. "I know." Dante set the cups on the bar. "That is why I made tea. Chamomile. It helps you sleep." Serena hesitated for a second, then walked over and sat on a bar stool, lifting the cup as warmth spread through her cold palms. Dante sat on the stool 1 seat away, not too close but not too far. They sat in silence for a while, each taking small sips of tea, listening to the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Inferno at night without customers was an entirely different world. Quiet, calm, as if all the dark secrets were asleep. "What did that journalist want?" Dante asked at last. Serena was not surprised that he knew. He likely knew everything that happened in this bar. "She wanted me to talk about you. About that night," Serena answered honestly. "She thinks you killed Derek Lawson." Dante looked at her, his black eyes unreadable. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I did not know where Derek was, and I did not care." Serena shrugged, "And I told her I feared many things. But you were not on the list." Dante was silent for a moment. Then he did something Serena did not expect. He laughed, not loudly, just a quiet sound escaping his throat, as if he had forgotten how to laugh, and the sound surprised even him. "You are not afraid of me," he said. "Not a question. I lived with Kevin Drake for 3 years." Serena looked down at her tea. "I was so afraid that I forgot what safety felt like. But you do not frighten me. I do not know why. Maybe because you are a different kind of monster, the kind that does not attack the innocent." Dante set his cup down, his gaze drifting into the distance as if looking into the past. "My mother used to say the same thing. She said my father was a monster too, but the kind that protected his family." Serena looked at him and for the first time saw a crack in the steel armor he had built around himself. "My mother, her name was Lucia," Dante said, his voice lowering as if the name itself were heavy. "She was the most beautiful woman in the world in my eyes, and she loved me more than anything. She died when I was 10, shot right in front of me by a rival gang to send a message, and that message was my mother's blood on my hands." Serena said nothing, knowing there were no words that could ease that pain. She simply sat there and listened, so he would know someone was listening. "The night Derek beat you," Dante continued, "when you stood up with blood on your face and did not cry. I saw my mother. She was the same, beaten, humiliated, but she never cried in front of anyone. She always stood back up, until the day she could not stand anymore." He turned to look at Serena, and for the first time his black eyes were not bottomless pits, but windows opened into his soul. "I could not save my mother, but I can save someone else. That is why I do what I do." Serena felt her heart tighten. Now she understood. She understood why he had done everything he had done. "The hospital bills," she said softly. "You paid my mother's hospital bills." Dante did not deny it. He only looked at her without asking for thanks. "Your mother deserves to live," he said simply, "and you deserve to stop worrying, even if only a little." Serena set her cup down, her hands trembling slightly. She wanted to cry, but she did not. She wanted to hug him, but she did not dare. Instead, she said 2 words. 2 words she had not said to anyone in many years. "Thank you." Dante nodded, and they sat in silence until the first light of dawn slipped through the windows, No more words were spoken, but something had changed between them. An invisible thread had been tied, and both of them knew that from this night on, they were no longer strangers. Kevin Drake was not the kind of man who knew how to give up. After the night Dante threatened him in the dark alley, he fled Manhattan like a beaten dog, hiding for 2 weeks in a cheap motel in New Jersey, lying on a filthy bed and stewing in his humiliation. He, Kevin Drake, the man who had once controlled every aspect of Serena's life, had been scared into running by a gangster, and the rage inside him boiled like volcanic magma. He could not let it end like this. Serena was his. She would always be his. And if he could not have her, then no one else would be allowed to. He sat in a dimly lit dive bar in New Jersey, drowning his rage in cheap whiskey, when he was approached by 3 men he had never seen before. They didn't want money. They wanted information. The Volkov Syndicate, a Russian organization trying to carve territory from the Moretti Empire, had been watching Dante, and they saw Kevin as the perfect weapon. They knew his hatred. They knew his connection to Serena, and they offered him a deal. Help them strike Dante where it hurt the most, and they would give him his wife back. The Volkov Syndicate, a Russian Mafia organization trying to carve territory from the Moretti Empire, was very interested in what Kevin knew. He knew where Serena worked. He knew her schedule. He knew Dante Moretti cared about her. And most importantly, he knew Serena's weakness. Her sister Lily Cole, 17 years old, a student at Jefferson High School, dismissed at 3 in the afternoon every day, walking home alone through Washington Park. The Volkov men smiled and shook his hand. They would protect him, and in return he would help them strike Dante Moretti where it hurt the most. On Wednesday afternoon, Lily left school as usual, her backpack heavy with books, headphones on, her mind on a math test the next day. She did not notice the black van slowly tailing her. She did not notice the 3 figures closing in from behind. She managed only a single scream before a hand clamped over her mouth and dragged her into the vehicle. It all happened in less than 10 seconds. No one saw. No one heard. Lily vanished as if she had never existed. Serena was at the hospital visiting her mother when her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. She opened it and her heart stopped. A photograph. Lily tied to a chair, mouth taped shut, eyes red from crying but still alive. Beneath the image were the words, "You think you can leave me? You think that gangster can protect you? Come to the old warehouse at Pier number 7 alone. No police, no Moretti. If I see anyone else, your sister dies. You have 2 hours. Serena dropped the phone. She could not breathe. She could not think. She could only stare at the image of her sister bound like an animal as the world around her collapsed. For the first time in many years, Serena Cole was truly afraid. Not for herself. She had stopped fearing death long ago. But for Lily, the innocent 17-year-old who had never hurt anyone, who had been forced to grow up too fast because of their family's circumstances. The only reason Serena was still alive, still fighting, still getting up every morning. If Lily died, then Serena would die as well. Not in body, but in soul. She would become a walking corpse, hollow and meaningless. She picked up the phone with trembling hands. She had to go. She had to save Lily, alone if necessary. Kevin wanted her, and she would come. She would kneel if he demanded it. She would beg if he required it. She would do anything for Lily to be safe. She ran out of the hospital, heart pounding, mind spinning. She did not consider calling the police because she knew Kevin meant it. He would kill Lily if she disobeyed. She did not consider calling Dante either, because she did not want to drag him into this chaos. This was her problem. Kevin was her past. She had to face it herself. But she did not know that Marco had seen her rush out of the hospital with a face white as death. He was following her on Dante's orders as always, and he knew something was wrong. He called Dante immediately and said, "Boss, there is a problem. She just received a message, and she looks like her world is about to fall apart." Dante received Marco's call while sitting in his office reviewing financial reports, and the moment he heard what Marco said, everything else became meaningless. Kevin Drake, Lily kidnapped, the Volkov Syndicate. He rose to his feet and swept the whiskey glass off the desk. It shattered across the floor, but he did not care. Rage erupted inside him like hellfire, burning through the restraint he had spent 36 years building. He had warned Kevin Drake. He had given him a chance to live, and Kevin had chosen death. "Find her," Dante growled into the phone. "Do not let her go there alone. I am on my way." He grabbed his coat and stormed out, making calls to his men. And within 5 minutes, the entire Moretti Empire was on alert. 20 men dispatched to Pier number 7, 10 more, tracking Kevin and the Volkov's exact location. Dante did not care how many men they had or how many guns they carried. He knew only one thing. Kevin Drake would die tonight, and anyone standing beside him would die with him. Marco stopped Serena before she could call a taxi. She stood on the sidewalk outside the hospital, face drained of color, hands shaking as she tried to open a ride app. And when Marco appeared, she nearly screamed. "Let me go," she cried. "My sister has been taken. I have to go." "I know," Marco said, calm but firm. "The boss is coming. You are not going anywhere alone." Serena tried to shove him aside, but he was an immovable wall. "You do not understand," she sobbed. "Kevin will kill Lily if I do not go alone," he said. 2 hours. "I have 1 hour and 45 minutes left. Please, please let me go." Tires screeched as a sleek black Maybach stopped in front of them, and Dante stepped out. Serena had never seen him like this. His black eyes were no longer cold voids, but blazing flames, his jaw clenched so tightly she could see the tendons standing out along his neck. Danger radiated from him like a predator about to strike. Serena rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. "Dante, my sister. Kevin took my sister. I have to go. You cannot stop me." "I know," Dante said, his voice like thunder. "I will not stop you. But you will not go alone." "No." Serena shook her head wildly. "Kevin said if he sees anyone else he will kill Lily. I cannot risk it. I have to go alone." Dante grabbed her shoulders and forced her to look at him. "Listen to me," he said slowly. Every word hard as steel. "Kevin Drake has no intention of letting Lily go, whether you show up or not. He wants you there, so he can have both of you. He will kill you in front of your sister, or kill her in front of you. That is how men like him think. That is how abusers operate. They do not know how to let go. They only know how to destroy." "But she is my sister," Serena whispered, her voice breaking. "She is only 17. She has done nothing wrong. I cannot let her die. I would rather die in her place. And that is exactly what Kevin wants," Dante replied, his voice softening just slightly. "He wants you dead. He wants you on your knees. He wants you broken. But I will not let that happen." Serena looked at him, exhausted and desperate. "You do not understand. This is my problem. Kevin is my ex-husband. This is my family's mess. I do not want to drag you into it." Dante leaned down until his face was inches from hers, his dark eyes anchoring her chaotic world with their steady calm. "You are mine," he said, each word a vow. "From the night you stood up with blood on your face and did not cry, you became mine. Lily is your sister, which means she is also under my protection. Kevin Drake dared to touch what is mine. He dared to threaten your family. He will pay, not because you ask it, but because I choose it." Serena stood frozen, unable to speak. She was used to fighting alone, used to having no one on her side, and now the most dangerous man on the East Coast was telling her she belonged to him, that he would protect her and her sister at any cost. "You are coming with me," Dante said, leaving no room for argument. "Not alone. You will stay in the car until I am finished. And when this is over, Lily will come home safe. I promise you." Serena looked into his eyes and saw something she had never seen in anyone before. Absolute certainty. Not empty reassurance, not a hollow promise, but the resolve of a man willing to burn the world to keep his word. "All right," she whispered. "I will go with you." Dante nodded, took her hand, and led her toward the car. The Moretti Empire was ready for war. The old warehouse at Pier No. 7 looked like an industrial corpse abandoned for years. Cracked brick walls, rusted tin roofing, shattered windows letting icy sea air surge inside, and beneath the sickly yellow light of a few working ceiling bulbs, Lily Cole sat bound to a rotting wooden chair, her mouth sealed with tape, her hands tied behind her with rope cinched so tightly her wrists were already bruised, tears streaming down her cheeks yet her eyes wide open, fixed on Kevin Drake with a hatred no 17-year-old girl should ever have to know. Kevin stood before her holding his phone, a twisted grin on his face, while 3 men from the Volkov syndicate were spaced around the warehouse, each armed, eyes locked on the entrances. 20 minutes left. Kevin checked his watch and laughed. "Your sister is coming soon, and when she gets here I will show you how much I love her." Lily tried to scream through the tape but only muffled. Furious sounds escaped. Kevin crouched and stroked her cheek with the same hand that had beaten Serena unconscious countless times. "Do not worry," he whispered. "I will not kill you. I will let you live so you can watch your sister kneel at my feet, so you will remember that no one escapes Kevin Drake." Outside the warehouse, Dante and his men were in position. 12 men encircling the building from all sides, hidden in darkness like ghosts. Marco stood beside Serena, in a car parked 50 meters away, keeping her there on Dante's orders. Serena sat gripping her hands until her nails dug into her palms, eyes locked on the warehouse door, wanting to run inside, wanting to kill Kevin with her own hands, but knowing she would only make things worse, knowing she had to trust Dante. For the first time in her life, placing the life of the person she loved most into someone else's hands, Dante entered the warehouse alone, unarmed, both hands raised, knowing Kevin would not shoot immediately. Men like him needed an audience, needed to see fear in their victims' eyes before acting, and Dante would give him exactly that long enough for Marco and the others to move. Kevin startled when he saw Dante instead of Serena. "Who are you?" he shouted, pulling his gun and aiming it at Dante. The three Volkov men raised their weapons. Tension stretched to the breaking point. Dante stopped in the center of the warehouse, black eyes flicking to Lily to be sure she was alive, then settling on Kevin as if he were nothing more than a worm. "You ask who I am," Dante said, his voice echoing through the empty space. "I am the man you were warned to stay away from. I am the man who gave you a chance to live, and you wasted it. I am Dante Moretti, and tonight you will learn the lesson you should have learned long ago." Kevin trembled but forced bravado. "You think you are something," he yelled. "I have 3 gunmen here. You are alone. You will be dead before you get near me." Dante smiled, a smile cold as ice. "You think I came here alone?" In that instant, glass shattered from all sides. Windows, back doors, side entrances exploding inward together. Dante's men surged in like a flood, fast, silent, lethal. Before the Volkov gunmen could react, they were neutralized. One shot through the shoulder, dropping his weapon. One knocked unconscious. The third locked from behind by Marco and rendered immobile in seconds. The fight ended before it truly began. The Moretti Empire was not built on empty words but on blood, iron, and calculated ruthlessness. Kevin stood shaking, gun still in his hand but trembling too violently to aim, looking around at his fallen allies and the dozen men in black suits closing in, turning back to Dante and finally understanding he had never had a chance, understanding he had played a game he could never win. "Do not," he stammered as the gun slipped from his hand. "Please, do not kill me. I will go. I will disappear. You will never see me again." Dante stepped toward him, each slow step like a death knell. He needed no weapon. His presence alone was enough to drive Kevin to his knees. "You already had your chance to disappear," Dante said, his voice cold as a Siberian winter. "I gave you 24 hours to leave New York. You did not leave. Instead, you kidnapped the sister of the woman I protect. You dared to threaten her family. Did you really think I would let that stand?" Kevin cried, cowardly tears spilling down his face just like the tears he had forced from Serena for 3 years. "Please," he whimpered. "I love her. I just want her back." Dante tilted his head, looking at him with undisguised disgust. "You call that love? Beating her, abusing her, making her lose her child, shoving her through shattered glass. That is not love. That is the sick ownership of a weak man who cannot bear the idea of someone escaping his control." Dante grabbed Kevin by the collar, hauled him up and drove a fist into his face. Kevin crashed to the floor, blood pouring from his nose. Dante stood over him, looking down like one looks at a worm. "I should kill you tonight," Dante said, "but I will not. Not because you deserve to live, but because I want you to live. I want you to remember, every remaining day of your miserable life, you will remember that you lost. You lost to the woman you tried to destroy. She stood back up. She lived. She is happy, and you will rot in prison until you die. Marco, call the police. Tell them about the kidnapping. I am sure they will be very interested to know Kevin Drake violated a restraining order." Marco nodded and pulled out his phone. Dante turned to Lily, gently peeling the tape from her mouth and cutting the ropes with a small knife. "Is she okay?" Lily asked as soon as she could speak. "Is my sister okay?" Dante looked at her, seeing Serena's eyes and Serena's strength, and nodded. "Your sister is outside. She is waiting for you." Lily broke down crying, no longer in fear but in relief, and Dante helped her to her feet and guided her out of the warehouse, out of the darkness and toward the lights where Serena was already running forward with her arms wide open. Serena ran as she had never run in her life. She did not see the men in black suits. She did not see the flashing red and blue lights of police cars approaching from a distance. She saw only Lily, her sister, the girl she had raised since childhood, the one she had sacrificed everything to protect, walking out of the warehouse door on trembling legs but alive, still alive. Those 2 words echoed in Serena's mind like a prayer as she threw her arms around Lily and held her so tightly as if letting go would make her disappear. "I am sorry," Serena sobbed, tears soaking Lily's shoulder. "I am sorry for dragging you into this. I am sorry about Kevin. I am sorry for everything." Lily clung to her sister and cried too. Not from pain or fear, but from relief and gratitude, because for the first time in her life someone had truly come to save them. "It is not your fault," Lily whispered. "It was never your fault. You are the strongest person I know." and they stood there holding each other on the freezing pier amid the chaos of police and Dante's men, amid the corpse of a nightmare that had just ended, crying for each other, for their mother lying in the hospital, for their father long gone, for all the years of suffering that might finally be coming to an end. Marco took Lily to the car first, wrapped her in a warm blanket and gave her a cup of hot water. The girl was exhausted, her eyes already drooping from fatigue and shock. Serena wanted to get into the car with her sister, but she needed to speak to Dante first. She needed to thank him. She needed him to understand what his actions meant to her. She found him standing alone beside the warehouse, watching Kevin being handcuffed and pushed into a police car, his face expressionless, as if destroying a kidnapper's life were merely another task in the day. Serena approached, unsure where to begin. She was used to being alone, used to having no help. She did not know how to thank someone who had saved her sister's life. Dante turned when he heard her footsteps. His black eyes softened when he saw her, the flames of rage extinguished, replaced by a strange calm she had never seen in him. "Is Lily all right?" he asked gently. "She is," Serena nodded. "Because of you." She did not know what else to say. No words were large enough for her gratitude. There was no way to repay what he had done. So she did the only thing she could think of. She bowed, deeply, the way one bows before a lifesaver, the way one shows ultimate respect. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "I do not know how to repay you. You saved my sister. You saved my family. I owe you my life." Dante watched her bow for a moment, then stepped forward, placed his hand beneath her chin, and gently lifted her face. His black eyes met her tear-filled gray-blue ones. "Never bow your head," he said quietly over the sound of the sea wind. "Not to anyone, not even to me. You have spent your life bowing to people who did not deserve it. It is time you held your head high." Serena looked at him and felt something shatter inside her chest. Not her heart, but the walls she had built around it for so many years. Walls meant to protect her from being hurt again. Dante Moretti, the Mafia boss, the devil of the Lower East Side, was standing there telling her she deserved to stand tall. "You and Lily cannot return to your old apartment," Dante continued, his voice regaining its usual firmness. "Kevin may have other associates. The Volkov syndicate may seek revenge. I want you both moved somewhere safer. I have an apartment on the Upper East Side with round-the-clock security and cameras everywhere. You will stay there until things settle down." Serena wanted to refuse. She was used to taking care of herself. She did not want to owe him anything more. But then she looked at the car where Lily sat curled beneath a blanket and knew she had no right to let her pride endanger her sister again. "All right," she said softly but firmly. "We will move there, but only temporarily, until I find another place." Dante nodded, not pressing, not demanding. He rested his hand on her shoulder for a second, a small gesture carrying more weight than words. Then he walked away, issuing orders to his men, and Serena stood alone in the night, watching his back and wondering how the devil could be so gentle. 3 months passed, like a dream. Serena scarcely dared to believe was real. She and Lily lived in the Upper East Side apartment, a place she once only dared to walk past, and never imagined she would step inside. Spacious with 2 bedrooms, a living room overlooking the park, a fully equipped kitchen, and a balcony where Lily liked to sit and do her homework each afternoon. Round-the-clock security, just as Dante had promised. Cameras everywhere. No ghosts from the past could reach them here. Kevin Drake sat in jail, awaiting trial on charges of kidnapping, violating a restraining order, and involvement with organized crime. Dante's lawyers ensured he would not see freedom for at least 15 years. 15 years. Long enough for Serena to build a new life. Long enough for the nightmares to fade. Her mother showed remarkable progress under the new treatment plan. Doctors said the tumor had shrunk by 30%, and that she could live many more years if treatment continued. Serena visited her every day, sitting by her bedside, telling her about work, about Lily, about their new life. Her mother did not know who Dante Moretti was, and Serena never told her. She only knew someone had helped her daughter, and she prayed for that person every night. Lily finished her final year of high school with outstanding grades and received a full scholarship to Columbia University. She would begin in the fall, pursuing medicine as she had dreamed since childhood. Everything was moving forward. Everything was becoming better. At Inferno, Serena had become an indispensable assistant manager, handling staff, scheduling, customer complaints, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. The employees respected her, not out of fear but because she treated everyone fairly. She never shouted, never humiliated anyone in public. She remembered how she had been treated on her first night and swore it would never happen to anyone under her authority. One Friday evening after the bar closed, Dante called her into his office. Serena entered without the tension she once felt, now familiar with the room. The painting of the woman on the wall, the scent of whiskey and oak. Dante sat behind his desk with a file in front of him. "Sit down," he said, pointing to the chair opposite. "I want to talk to you." Serena sat and waited. Dante slid the file toward her. "This is a new contract for the general manager position. I am stepping back from daily operations, and I want you to run everything. Full decision-making authority, a significantly higher salary, and 10% of the monthly net profits. Full decision-making authority over bar operations." Serena stared at the file, then at Dante, unsure she had heard correctly. "A partner," she repeated. "Why?" "Because you deserve it," Dante replied without false modesty. "You changed how Inferno operates. Staff are more efficient, customers more satisfied. Revenue has increased 15% over the past 3 months. That is not luck. That is your capability." Serena fell silent, thinking of everything that had happened since the first night. Derek, Kevin, nights of crying alone in a crumbling apartment, the long road that had led her here, and she wondered if she truly deserved it. "I do not know anything about business," she said honestly. "I am just a waitress. You are the woman who stands back up every time she is knocked down." Dante met her gaze. "That is something business cannot teach." Serena looked down at the contract, read every line, and finally picked up the pen and signed her name. "All right," she said. "I will be your partner, but if I mess up, you have to tell me straight." Dante nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "I always do." At the same time, Michelle Torres sat in the New York Chronicle newsroom, staring at the draft on her computer screen. She had investigated Dante Moretti for 3 months, spoken to dozens of people, gathered hundreds of documents, and built a complete picture of his empire. But it was not black and white as she had expected. She found anonymous, charitable donations to orphanages. She found a traced bank transfer from a shell company linked to Inferno, paying off exactly $82,000 in medical debt for a woman named Rosa Cole. The same week her daughter started working there, former employees who spoke of fair treatment and generous pay, the woman who refused to speak ill of the man who saved her sister. Michelle deleted the old draft and began again. The new article would not be an indictment. It would be a balanced portrait of a man who lived in darkness, but was not entirely a devil. Every Sunday, Dante visited Sophia Moretti at the old family estate on Long Island, the only woman left in his family, the one who raised him after his mother died and his father buried himself in work. She was 65 yet still sharp and clear-minded, her brown eyes able to see through every lie and half-truth. Dante sat across from her in the living room, where family photographs covered the walls, and the air smelled of lavender and freshly baked cookies. She poured him tea with hands, wrinkled but steady, and studied him with the look he knew meant she was reading every thought in his head. "You are different," she said without preamble. "Since that girl entered your life." Dante did not pretend not to know whom she meant. "You imagine things," he replied, sipping his tea. Sophia laughed softly, the laugh of a woman who had lived too long to be fooled by denial. "I raised you from the time you were 10. I watched you build walls around your heart so high no one could climb them. I watched you become a man the entire city fears. But I have also watched you these past 3 months. You smile more. You come home earlier. You speak of the future instead of only guarding what you already have. That is not imagination." Dante fell silent, staring into his teacup. Sophia had always been able to see through him in ways no one else could. "I do not know what this is," he admitted quietly. "I do not know how to love anyone. I only know how to possess, how to control, how to protect. My father taught me that love is weakness, that if I love someone, my enemies will use them against me, the way they used my mother." Sophia set her cup down and took his hand. "Your father was wrong," she said gently but firmly. "He ruled through fear because he knew no other way. He lost his wife and believed freezing his heart was the only way to survive. But you are not your father. You can choose differently." Dante met her gaze and saw the warmth he had avoided for 26 years. "I am afraid," he said, admitting it aloud for the first time. "I am afraid that if I let her in, I will lose her. The way I lost my mother." Sophia squeezed his hand. "You may lose her if you keep her at a distance, or you may have her if you are brave enough to open your heart. The choice is yours." That night Dante sat alone in his office at Inferno, looking out at the city lights below, thinking about Sophia's words, about his life. 36 years. He had money enough to buy anything he wanted, power enough to make an entire city bow, fear from his enemies enough to keep anyone from touching him. And yet he was alone. He had been alone since his mother died. He had built an empire with no one to share it with, won every war yet returned each night to a cold penthouse by himself. Serena had changed that. She entered his life with blood on her lips and resilience in her eyes, and did what no one had done in 26 years. She made him want to be a better man. On Monday morning, Michelle Torres's article appeared in the New York Chronicle, with the headline, Dante Moretti, The Shadows and the Light of the Lower East Side. It was not the indictment he had feared, nor was it praise. It was an honest portrait of a man living on the boundary between crime and justice, violence and protection, darkness and rare flickers of mercy. Michelle wrote about the night Derek assaulted Serena and how Dante responded, about anonymous charitable donations, employees treated fairly, a neighborhood kept safe. She also wrote of rumors, unproven accusations, and shadows she could not illuminate. Reactions were divided as expected. Some called Dante a hero of the poor, others a criminal given polish. Social media erupted in debate, but there were no serious consequences, no new investigations, no enemies exploiting it. The article came and went, like all others, leaving behind only questions each reader answered in their own way. Dante read it in silence, folded the paper, and looked out the window. He did not care what the world thought of him. He cared what one person thought, and tonight he would ask her. 6 months later, Inferno was no longer a place people came to out of fear, but a place they came to because they wanted to belong. Under Serena's leadership, the culture of the bar had transformed completely. Staff worked with genuine smiles, not because they feared punishment, but because they felt respected. Customers returned not only for good drinks but for a warmth money could not buy. When a young waitress named Emma accidentally dropped a tray of glasses during peak hours, the bar fell silent for a second. Not the silence of fear, but of concern. Serena came immediately, not to scold but to ask if the girl was all right. "Are you okay? Accidents happen to everyone. Clean it up and keep going." Emma nodded gratefully, and Marco brought a broom to help her as if it were the most natural thing in the world. From his usual booth, Dante watched everything with an expression he never imagined he could have 6 months earlier. Peace. He had aged in those months, not in body but in soul. More lines around his eyes when he smiled. Fewer walls around his heart when he loved. Serena had taught him what his father never did. That true strength is not in making people afraid, but in making them want to stand beside you. That respect is not something taken by force, but something given before it is returned. Late at night, when the last customer left and the staff clocked out, Dante and Serena stayed behind in the quiet bar. It had become their ritual. 2 cups of chamomile tea, low lights, conversations without urgency. "You changed this place," Dante said, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. "My father built Inferno with fear. I maintained it with power. But you turned it into something else, something better." Serena sipped her tea, her gray-blue eyes no longer exhausted as they once were, but bright with something like hope. "I did not change anything," she said softly. "I just treated people the way I wanted to be treated. It is not magic. It is basic kindness that many have forgotten." Dante looked at her. The woman who entered his life with blood on her face and walked out holding his heart. She did not know it, but she had saved him. Not the way he saved her and Lily, but in a deeper way. She saved him from himself. "Do you think about the future?" he asked quietly. "Your future. Our future." Serena set her cup down and looked at him for a long moment. "I spent my entire life just trying to survive today," she said slowly. "I was afraid to think about tomorrow because I was never sure there would be one. But now for the first time I want a future, and I want you in it." Dante said nothing. He simply reached out and Serena placed her hand in his. Not a grand romantic gesture, just 2 people who had crossed hell and found each other on the other side, 2 broken souls learning how to heal together. Before leaving, Serena stopped by the blackboard near the door where Dante had written years earlier, the words, "Respect is earned here." She picked up the chalk and added a line beneath it. "And given freely." Dante read the new words and nodded. That was the legacy they would leave behind. Not an empire built on blood and fear, but a place where respect was freely given and returned many times over. They stepped outside together into the glittering Manhattan night. Ahead lay a future no one could predict. There might be more trials, new enemies. Happiness might not last forever, but in this moment they had each other. And sometimes that is all a person needs. Justice does not always wear a police badge. Sometimes it wears a black suit and has blood on its hands. Sometimes it looks like a man learning gentleness in a world that taught him only violence. And sometimes it looks like a woman who refuses to fall no matter how many times life tries to crush her. This story offers a profound lesson about the power of resilience and the value of compassion. No matter how hard life pushes you into a corner, No matter how many times you are knocked down, always stand back up, because standing up does not mean the absence of tears. Standing up means wiping them away and continuing forward. True respect does not come from making others afraid, but from treating them with dignity. And true love is not possessing someone, but helping them become the best version of themselves. Thank you for staying with this story from beginning to end. If it touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss new stories each day. Do not forget to like and share this video with the people you love. I would truly love to know how you felt about this story. Have you ever met someone like Serena in your life? Do you believe people can change like Dante did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read and cherish every message from the bottom of my heart. I wish all of you watching good health, a joyful life, and a peaceful